Welcome to the Brian Can Help podcast. I'm Brian King. With 17 years as a mentor to the neurodivergent community and beyond, a master's in social work, and lived experience with neurodivergence and chronic illness, I'm here to share insights on how to mine the riches of adversity that come with the human condition. So let's dive into candid talks on relationships, mindset, and more. Let's explore the ingredients of a fulfilling life together. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Your thinking habits can either feed negative self-talk or help nip it in the bud. Negative self-talk is that constant inner voice of criticism, doubt, and judgment that drags down our self-worth. It can feel like we have no control over it, but our habits have a huge influence on negative thought patterns. I'll share 6 key habits today. 3 that tend to reinforce damaging self-talk, and 3 that can help reduce it. And making small changes in these habitual behaviors can create meaningful shifts in how you see yourself over time. Let's start by looking at the habits you may want to avoid. The first one is rumination or perseveration. By perseveration, that's kind of a root of persevere, meaning that you stick with something, you don't give up on it. And ruminating is like a fixation on your mistakes, your failures, or your negative thoughts. You just keep replaying it over and over and over again in your head. And when we ruminate, that repetition amplifies those thoughts and hardwires them into your brain because of the repetition. Remember in school how you learn to study your notes over and over until the material sinks in? Because our brain wires itself to remember the things that we do repeatedly. The same principle applies here. You repeating these thoughts over and over trains your mind to do this as a habit. The longer you do it, the harder it can be to change it, but change it you can. Notice when you find yourself ruminating and consciously shift your focus to something more positive. For example, switch a phrase like, well, that was stupid, to, well, that was interesting. When you practice replacing it consistently, when it happens, you train yourself to make that shift instead of shutting down, withdrawing, beating yourself up. You follow me? Break the cycle before the negative rumination fuels even more negative self-talk. So instead of saying, well, that was stupid, because I'm dumb and I'm not good at this, and people probably think I'm a loser, you want to shift it at the first thought before it becomes that conversation. And if you are used to interrupting it quickly, then the habit becomes to notice, shift, and then engage in more positive, uplifting self-talk. Okay, that's the first habit. The next one is comparison. We all get trapped in this. It's easy to compare ourselves to others. Heck, marketing is based on this. You look at any commercial and it tells you, hey, do you have the best possible this? Or are you involved in the current trend that your buddies are involved in? They make you wonder whether you are in or out, whether you have the status you want or whether you have low status. It's a great big mind job. And beating yourself up for not measuring up to colleagues, friends, family members, anyone, is a dangerous path to go down. It feeds your brain with very damaging messages that you are not good enough. So catch yourself making these comparisons that trigger this kind of self-judgment, this not good enoughness. And remind yourself that your value isn't defined by how you stack up against others. Your value is there just because you're here. Here's an example of how this would sound. If you're thinking in terms of the not good enoughness, you might say something like, I'll never be as successful as them. They're so much better at everything. But instead of believing that, you're going to switch it to, I have my own unique strengths and talents that I'm continuously developing. I'm a work in process. I'm on my journey and I am capable of succeeding in my own way. How does that work for you? Well, let's look at habit 3. I call it embracing can't. It's when we avoid things that intimidate or scare us because we are afraid of feeling disappointed or disappointing others. And we miss out on so many chances to grow our confidence, resourcefulness, and resilience. Sidestepping challenges means reinforcing those self-doubts and fears of failure, and then it becomes your reality, the way you think of yourself by default, if you continue to go down that road. So instead of bracing can't, look for small, manageable challenges that you can tackle. Things that push you just outside your comfort zone, not so much that you are rattled by it or throw yourself into an anxiety attack, but just like a little bite, dipping your toe into the water. Prove to yourself that you can build skills a little bit at a time, baby steps, and chip away at self-limiting beliefs. Examples of this would be like trying a new food, or reaching out to a friend you haven't talked to in a while, or creating a daily reading goal for yourself. Maybe you're going to read 5 pages of a new book every day. And this demonstrates to you that you can take action, make things happen, and feel good about yourself. Now, the good news is you can also cultivate the habits that minimize these negative thoughts. Kind of sprinkled that in the discussion so far, but that's what we're going to emphasize next. We talked about the habits that will reinforce the negativity. Now, here are 3 that will reinforce the positivity. The first one is daily gratitude. And I know you've heard this one. Back in the 80s, I think, I'm dating myself, is when the idea of the gratitude journal really started taking hold. And people espouse the virtues of starting your day with 3 things you're grateful for, and then ending your day with 3 things you're grateful for. And in my experience, and probably a lot of other folks too, taking time each day to actively notice and reflect on things you appreciate builds the habit of noticing these things that are working, that are going well. The abundance in the universe that just gives itself to you. I personally make a point of being grateful for the little things. It's the time of year where it's pretty hot, and a cold drink on a hot day is worthy of stopping and feeling the gratitude for it. Because there are too many things that we are used to being accessible to us, and we take them for granted. But them being so consistently available is worthy of celebration. Hey, I woke up and the air conditioner is working. Thank you. I went to the fridge and it was full of my favorite food. Thank you. You're able to make coffee without spilling any on the counter. Wow, thank you for that. Now, there are more opportunities than you will probably ever notice. And we tend to bias ourselves towards exceptional examples. If someone helps you carry something, you almost thank them with resentment because you've learned that being helped is not a good thing. Well, that's another conversation. But anything that helps your day go more smoothly, say thank you. And also, this may be very counterintuitive, the things that kick you in the head a little bit remind you to be patient, humble, remind you of how good it is that people are around you looking out for you. Even in those moments where you wish it hadn't happened, when you can find the value, you will say thank you in those moments as well. Now let's talk about the second habit that can reinforce more positive self-talk. It's empowering self-talk. It's the kind of self-talk about giving yourself credit for the actions you took that made something happen. Did you help someone with something? Give them a piece of advice? Were you the one helping them carry something? Instead of knocking yourself with statements like, oh, it's no big deal, anybody could have done this, and making it seem like your actions don't matter, try thinking to yourself, I'm grateful this person allowed me to help. I really enjoy helping other people. Or maybe I just enjoy being useful and I'm grateful I had that opportunity. Practice saying this switch and tell me if you can feel the difference. Shifting from, it's no big deal, anybody could have done it, to, I'm so grateful you allowed me to help. Practice that and let me know what the difference feels like for you. Recognizing the difference your actions make reminds you you are not hopeless. You can consciously act in a way that makes things better in your life, someone else's life, in the community. And of course, the opposite is also true. We can make mistakes that cause harm or upset to someone else that we didn't intend. But being able to counter those thoughts with humility helps you learn from and improve upon them. For example, you can counter thoughts like, I'm such a failure, with a statement like, I'm still learning and growing. I'll get there. I need to be patient with myself. And make this positive self-talk a daily habit. I can't emphasize that enough. And as Maya Angelou famously said, and this is one of my favorite quotes, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. That is a fundamental truth of the human experience I hope you understand. We are not put here for perfection. We are put here for growth and collaboration. Now, the third habit is to practice self-compassion. That means treating yourself with kindness and understanding, just as you would a friend who's having a rough time. When the negative self-talk shows up, respond to it with self-compassionate thoughts instead of self-criticism. Examples are, resting and recharging is a sign of strength, not weakness. And maybe even talk to yourself in second person. You say, hey, Bri, resting and recharging, this is how you take care of you so you can take care of other people. There's no reason for you to feel guilty about this, because this is some of the most important work that you will ever do, the work of self-care. Another statement you could say is, my personal worth is not open for discussion. I don't rely on other people's opinions to tell me I am worthy of thinking good of myself and that I'm worthy of having others think good of myself. Your self-worth is something you and you alone determine, and it's no one else's business. One last example is, I forgive myself for this mistake, and I will do better next time. Notice the thread throughout a lot of these alternate statements or switch statements is that you are reserving the right to improve. Anything that's happening to you isn't a demonstration of who you are in some fixed way that will never, ever change. It recognizes that, again, perfection isn't the goal. It doesn't even exist. What does exist is growth, learning, progress. So let's emphasize those. The bottom line, attention is like oxygen to a bad habit. By deliberately and repeatedly giving your attention to more positive habits, particularly in the way you think about yourself, the weaker your negative self-talk becomes, because the negative self-talk is not getting the repetition, the reinforcement, the hardwiring in your brain. Positive stuff is. And the habits that we cultivate have an enormous impact on how we see ourselves. Be mindful of those that fuel negative self-talk and double down on the habits that foster self-compassion. With small, consistent changes to your daily routines, baby steps, you can gently and gradually minimize, reduce the damage of the inner critic. Now, before I go, I want to try something new to see if it appeals to you. You and I understand that results don't come because of what you know. They come from what you apply. With that in mind, I've created a free workbook to help you apply the concepts in this episode. There's a link at the bottom of the description so you can download it. It's a fillable PDF, so you don't even need to print it out. Now, make sure you email me and tell me whether you like it so I know to keep on making them. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to the Brian Can Help podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review and share it with others who could really use the encouragement. On my website, briancanhelp.com, you'll find my books, online courses, and one-to-one coaching programs for living a conscious, empowered, and fulfilling life. I'd love to have you in one of our compassionate communities. Until next time, thanks for being you.